Alrighty guys, welcome to week 3 and 4. We're going to do the following. We're going to create a about page. So you click on it and it can be really about anything you want. We got to create the database that we're going to store our users in, create the table in that database, and we got to create up a sign up form and make sure that it works. There's a lot of junk to do this. We got a lot of stuff we got to do. So that's why I'm giving you again 2 weeks to do all this. Okay, so just pace yourself, make sure you get through it. There's not going to be anything turned in this week. The first 2 weeks you had to turn in the Heroku link and the GitHub link, but there's nothing to turn in. Just keep going and get all this done and try to just make sure that you stay on task. Okay. Alrighty. So first thing we're going to do is create an about page. So I'm going to head over to Documents because that's where I saved it, and it was Python app, right? Go inside here to templates. Now it's going to be really similar to index, so I'm just going to copy and paste this. Okay, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename this about. Okay, and I'm going to open with brackets. Okay. Also, what we need to do is remember the routes file controls basically what happens when you go to different pages and such. So we have this route where when we just basically go to the home page, it's going to take us to the index. So we're going to define another route. Okay, actually let me get rid of this space here. Okay, so I'm going to come down here, set up another route. So app.route, and the route's going to be when they type in /about. Okay, so this just means basically when they just go to the home page, localhost or the 127 IP address. But when we go to localhost on the port of 5,000 and do /about, this is what is going to happen. So we'll set up the about function here, and it's going to render the template. You can probably guess what's going to happen here, and it's going to render the template about. All right. Okay. So that's just setting up. So when we type in the localhost 5,000 port /about, it's going to run about.html. Is really all that's going on there. All right. So let's open up the CMD here. I'm going to hop into Documents, going to hop into Python app. Okay, it's where we want to be. Okay, now I've already created an about page. It's nothing that amazing, so I'm just going to grab what I've already done here. And this is going to be kind of up to you. You're just going to, you'll figure out what you want to do. But I created my about page. So I'm just going to throw it in here, and then I'll show you exactly what I did, if I can find it. There we go. All right, so it's the same thing. We're extending from layout, right? So we're grabbing everything that's inside of layout, and then this is the block content that's going in there. I set up the home, right? And I made it URL for index. Okay, so that'll take me back home. The sign up, I'm probably going to switch up later, but not right now because we haven't really even got that to work yet. And then I just threw in another picture. Okay, and another thing that I'm not going to go over a whole lot is the CSS here. So if I go back to my test one that I've been doing, I'm going to grab the main.css. Okay, because this is just stuff you guys are going to do on your own. I'm not really going to tell you what to do on this just because it's up to you guys on what you want to do. All right. So that's what I did for, it's just exactly kind of like the home page, except for I set up the different links. I put in another picture called flash.png, so we can take a look at it now. All right, so now that I'm inside there, I just do python routes.py, which is going to run that local server for us. Okay, so now I can come over here, localhost. Okay, that's our Python page. I hit learn more, and that doesn't work because I haven't changed it. So I got to update that. So we're going to come back here. I need to get rid of this one just so I'm not confusing them. So we go to templates. We're going to open up index. Now we need to set up these links, right? So it's the learn more that we're messing with. So inside of here, I'm going to put in the double curly brackets, URL _for, parenthesis, about. Okay, that's just getting it from the routes, right? We have this about route, right, that ends up loading about.html. That's all we're doing there, is we're just saying, all right, when we click on that, go to the URL for about. Okay. We'll do that later, and then the about, we have the URL for index, so that'll take us back home. Okay. And then all the CSS and such. I mean, I can show you, but again, I'd rather you kind of be doing your own CSS here. But I just threw in a pic too and just positioned it the way I needed to. I mean, that was it, really. Not a whole lot more. Now, I found here sometimes when I just refresh the page, okay, it worked that time, which is good. But sometimes when I just refresh the page, it doesn't work. So on PCs, I don't know what Macs do. You can hit Control F5, and that will allow you to, it kind of clears the cache and reloads at the same time. I don't know if there's a similar command on Mac, but I know for PCs that works. So I go learn more. Okay, my picture's dead, so I got to go grab that from the other one. If you haven't guessed, Flask is the one I kind of mess around with and play with before I do this. Okay, so let me grab that. So I make sure everything works first in my Flask folder, and then Python app is the one I'm doing with you guys. Alright, so I throw Flask in there. Now we can reload and see what happens. Okay, there it is. Okay, so that's it. Nothing too crazy. And then when I click on home, it should take me back home. So I have the learn more, and then I click home and it takes me home. So you need to create an about page. It can be whatever you want. It can be about whatever you want. It doesn't need to be too crazy. It doesn't need to be too, you know what, that's still kind of big. So I'm gonna, you can come over here and put in heights and such. If I go height equals like 225. Yeah, a little bit smaller. Anyways, yeah, it doesn't have to be too crazy. Just, you know, style it up, make it your own. Okay. All right. So now that we have that done and set up and we're good, I'm going to close out of there. So I hit Control C. Now I want to just save that to GitHub. All right. So if you remember how, we have to, if we do get status, remember that will tell us what's been modified and what needs to be changed and all that kind of stuff. So we need to add all that stuff. So we need to add routes, because routes has been changed and we need to re-upload that. I've changed the CSS file, so I'm just going to add the static page again, or the static folder, and that will just kind of put everything in there. And also I put in a new picture. I put in this Flask picture. So really just I'm adding the whole folder again. I think that's kind of the best way to do it. And I'm going to do the same thing with templates, because I added, I changed index, I added the about page, you know, so I just want to get all those things added. Okay. So now if I hit get status again, now it knows, okay, I'm going to add routes, I'm going to add all these different things. It found the new files, it found the things that I modified, so it's smart enough to know all that, which is good. So you just git commit -m Then you give a little comment here. It was the about page. So I hit enter, commits all the changes, puts it in the local repository. And if I do git push origin master, that uploads it up to GitHub. That's what we did right in the video for the first 2 weeks. Okay, and then if I want to deploy that out to Heroku, oops, it's git push Heroku master. So you always got to commit those changes to your local GitHub repository, and then once you've done that, you can upload them out to Heroku. Now, obviously, we're not done here. All we've done really is just added that about page. Okay, so like I said, you take time to create your own about page, create your own links, put a little description in there, whatever, and then get it out there. And then Heroku open, take a look at it. And it should open it here in Chrome. Happy Days, Desolate Harbor. If I hit learn more, boom, there it is. And then I hit home, goes back. Okay, and this is live on the web. Okay, so that's the first part of the assignment. Create a new about page. You gotta add the different links. Okay, make sure your links are working, and then come in here and mess with the routes just so your about page actually works. And when you click on the link, kind of an important thing, right? Okay, now we need a place to store users when they sign up. Okay, so we're going to do this in pgadmin. So I'm going to load up pgadmin. Again, this is kind of like a graphical user interface for database. So we don't have to type in any SQL. I just like it. It seems to work pretty good. All right, now the first thing you want to do here is I'm going to drop this down, drop that down. It's going to ask for the password. This was the password that you created when you first installed PostgreSQL. Okay, come down here. Now we want to create a login, basically a user that will be used to access the database. It's kind of like a username and a password to kind of secure your database. Granted, this is a local database installation, right? So not a lot of people are going to hack into it, but it's good to know how to do it. So I'm going to drop down here. Now I created one called admin, and I'm going to keep using that. I did admin, the password's ABC123. But what you're going to want to do is right click here and do create, and then login group role. And the name I did admin. Okay, the definition is right here. So the password ABC123. You don't need to mess with any of this stuff. Privileges, you want to give yourself all privileges, just so you can do anything that you want to do to this database. Membership, don't care. Parameters, don't care. The rest of this stuff we don't really care. And this is the SQL that will be generated. And then you hit save. Okay, and it's going to say, hey, it already exists. That's because I already did it. But once you hit save, it should be fine. I can come over here and do admin too if I want. Okay, and then there it is. And then if you want to get rid of roles, or maybe you did something wrong, right click, delete drop. Do I want to delete admin too? Heck yeah, I do. Then I'm back to only admin. But the point is, you're basically creating a user that will have control over the database that you're gonna mess with. Okay. All right. Come up here. We're gonna create a new database. I'm gonna call it Python app, because that's kind of what I'm calling everything. The owner is gonna be that user that you just created. All right. So the owner of this database is gonna be admin. Definition and all this other stuff we don't really mess with. Okay, but the main thing is I called it Python app, and the owner is admin, and I'll hit save. Okay, boom, there it is. Okay, now that we've created the database, we have to actually create a table that's going to store the users and their passwords and emails and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of weird how you do this. You got to hop into schemas, go into public, you come down here, and there are the tables. All right, so I'm going to click on that, right click, go to create table. Okay, and I'm going to call this table users because that's what it's going to do. It's going to hold the users that sign up on the website. Owner is definitely not that. The owner is going to be admin. Schema is public. I think the rest of it, really not going to do much with. Yep. Just we're creating a table called users. The owner is going to be the user that we created. Schema is public, so forth. So we'll hit save. All right, so we've created this database called Python app. Inside of Python app, we have a table called users. Okay, and inside of users, we need to set up some columns. Okay, and the things we're going to be asking for is first name, last name, an email, and a password are the things we're going to ask for. So I'm going to right click and do create column. Actually, the first one we're going to do is user ID. So I'm going to say UID. Okay. Now it's saying column type can't be empty, so I come over here to definition and we got to give it a type. We're going to give it a type of serial because it's going to be a number. Now, not null. All of these we're going to check yes. In other words, I think I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that null means it can't be like empty. So I can't have an empty part in that database. That's what I'm guessing. I could be wrong here, but everything's going to be not null. Okay, so the name of the column is UID for user ID, not null, yes. Variable, security, we don't have to worry about all this. So I'm going to hit save. So there's the first column in there. Now I need to come to this table. Well, let's just add the rest of them. So I'm going to do create. I will call it first name. Okay, and this is going to be a character. In other words, it'll allow numbers and letters basically. The length will go 100, so we won't allow it to go any more than 100 characters. Not null, yes. I think that's all we need to do there. Yep, so we'll hit save. We'll create the other ones. So last name, definition, same thing, character. Length 100, not null, yes. Okay, hit save. Okay, email. This is going to be character as well. We'll give them a few more characters for the email, 120. Just because we're nice. Not null, yes. Okay, and then the last one is going to be password. We're going to call it password hash. This is going to be character as well. And the length, we'll just give them 100 for the password because we're jerks. Not null, yes. All right, just because I need to make sure, I'm pretty sure I did this right. I just need to double check something really quick. So this is my other database. So I just need to make sure that I had it all the same, which I do. Beautiful. All right, just didn't want to waste our time there. Okay, so we got an email, first name, last name, password, UID. Now here's a couple things though that we need to do with these columns. The email, no one in the world can have the same email. If I have email hi@yahoo.com, no one else can have that. So we need to make sure that this email column is set up to kind of reject data or reject having information get put in it if it's the same email. Okay. Also, we need to define which one of these is the primary key. And the primary key is basically the column that's like the main key where all the other things can be based off of it. You don't have to worry too much about that, but we need to set those two up. All right, so I'm going to go inside the properties of this table. So I'm going to click on the users table, right click, and go to properties. Okay, now once I'm in there, I need to mess with the constraints. So in the constraints, you can see this is where I can mess with the primary key and the unique. So the user ID is going to be the primary key. It's going to be the main column, where if I were to have other tables referring to this table, it would use that primary key. But we're not going to get that crazy, so don't worry about it. So I'm going to hit the little plus here. And then, oh wait, yeah, when I hit plus, it's going to say, please specify the columns for the primary key. So I'm going to hit the little edit button here. Go over here to definition, and I'm going to choose user ID. The rest of it, I don't really need to mess with. General, this would be, I think, if I was going to create it, but I'm not. It's already been created. So I just hit save. Now I can go back into the properties, constraints, primary key. Now it says the user's primary key is user ID, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so that's setting up the ID. Every time a user signs in, it'll assign a user ID to them, and it just increments. Okay, so the first user will get 1, the second user will get 2 and 3, and so forth. That's just so every user will have a unique ID, basically. That's what that primary key does. Okay, now unique, that's what we were talking about, is we need to make sure that on the emails, that all the different accounts that get created, there can only be one account per email. So this just makes it so once someone creates an account and uses their email, that email is unique and it can't have any duplicates. All right, so we'll hit plus, edit definition, and it's email. Okay, and I hit save. So now if we go back out to it and we head over to unique, we'll see that email is now unique. Happy days. Okay. All right. I think we're good, guys. So that should be it for the database. We have the database, the table, the columns inside of there, and we've set up the user. So now this database is hanging out and it's ready to be connected to. So we can kill that. We can get out of there. Okay, now to be able to connect to databases, Flask can't do that on its own. So we have to install a thing called SQL Alchemy. If I come here, it's basically just a plugin that allows Flask to communicate with databases and manipulate databases and all that kind of stuff. This is the documentation. So if you ever want to do something different than what we do in here, you can come in here and it will show you how to do all these different things, which is really nice. Okay, so we need to install this. So we go into the app directory and I'm going to type pip install flask-SQL Alchemy. We hit enter. Now again, just like in the other, I've already installed it. Okay, so wherever it goes, yeah, it goes inside of, let's see, app data, local. Yeah, so inside the Python file or folder when we installed it, there's a lib folder, and then inside of there's a site packages folder, and that's where it put it. So the cool thing is once you've installed these plugins, any of your apps can use them, which I think is kind of cool. So mine's saying, hey, you've already done this, but yours won't. It'll download it, get it installed, and then you'll be on your way. Okay. Now we need to go into the routes file, and we gotta basically configure the database. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty simple, actually. We just come right here, Okay, and oops, it's going to go right underneath the app. We're going to do app.config. Okay, and it needs to know what it's going to be configuring. Okay, and it's SQL alchemy underscore database. Make sure you spell all this stuff right, obviously. URI. And we're basically going to tell it the URL of the database, but we also need to give it the login information. Okay, so the way SQL Alchemy works is it needs to know certain things. So the first thing we got to tell it is where the database is located on our computer. So there is a PostgreSQL protocol, and it's going to use this URL basically to get out there and find the database. So the first thing we got to give it though is the login information. So there's my username for that user I just created, and then there's my password. Okay, so it's my username colon ABC123, and then it's at localhost Python app. Okay, so what we've done here is we've given it the protocol basically that it's saying, hey, this is a PostgreSQL database. The username is admin, the password is ABC123. The database is found at localhost / Python app. Python app refers to the name of your database. Okay, remember I called my database Python app. So in this case, in my other one that I was messing around with, where I called it Flask, I had to have Flask there. So in this one where I called it Flask, when I was coding this out, I had to have at localhost / Flask. But remember, I called it Python app. Okay, so whatever you called your database, you need to make sure it's the same thing here. Okay, and that should be all we need. Okay, now we need to create a models file. Okay, and this is going to be what basically creates all of the objects and such that we need to be able to communicate and mess with the database. This is probably going to be the craziest thing we do in this video. Alright, so let's get rid of that. Actually, guys, just for time's sake, I'm just going to grab the one that I have in here. No, I'm not. We'll type it out. So, I mean, the cool thing is you can always watch this back at like 2 times the speed, right? Okay, so I'm going to head in here. I'm going to grab routes. Okay, and I'm just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to rename this models. Okay, and we will open it up. Okay, we can definitely get rid of all this because it's not going to be the same. So we're going to say from flask.ext.sql alchemy import SQL alchemy. This is basically saying from the Flask plugins, basically, we're importing SQL alchemy just so we can use it and do what we need to do there. Okay, and this is going to be what allows us to encrypt the password, basically. So there's this worksug, I don't know how to say that, but this is basically the class, the plugin basically that we're going to be using to generate our password hash and to check it. So generating is when you type in a password, say ABC123, it'll take that and hash it. In other words, it will encrypt it. And then when you log in, it needs to check those hashes to make sure they're the same. And if they're the same, it'll let you in. So this is what's going to make our password be encrypted when it goes into the database. Okay, and I'm guessing this is just included with either when I installed SQL Alchemy, which this is probably something that's already just included with Flask. Just make sure everything's spelled right. Okay. All right, so now we're going to set up a variable here, and we're going to set it equal to a new instance here of SQL Alchemy. So basically, we're importing the SQL Alchemy up here, and we're saving all the stuff that SQL Alchemy can do inside of database. Just setting up the new class, the new instance here. All right, so we're setting up a class called user. Okay, inside of here, we're going to start setting up. We have the table name, 2 underscores, it's equal to users. So this is all SQL Alchemy markup or code or whatever. We're setting up, this is where we're creating a model here that will emulate and have all of the stuff that our database has. So the first thing we need to tell it is, okay, there's a table inside of our database called users. Okay. Inside of that, we're going to set up a new variable called UID, and we're going to say go inside of that database, and there's a column, and this column UID is going to be an integer. In other words, a serial, right? It's just going to have a number, and it's the primary key. The primary key is true. So SQL Alchemy can't just go into PostgreSQL and look at our database and know exactly how it's set up. So we're setting this up here so later on we can use this model and we can use this code to manipulate what's inside the database. So we just have to set up everything that we did inside of the PostgreSQL. Okay, so we're setting up a new column. I'm not setting it up, but setting it up here in the model. Okay, so first name equals db.column, and it's a string with 100 characters. So I'm going to copy and paste this a couple times because the rest of what I'm going to do here is pretty similar. Okay, so last name, same thing. It's going to be a column with a string of 100. We got email. Okay, remember these are all columns. We're telling it that, hey, these are columns inside of DB, right? DB is up here. It's the new instance here of SQL Alchemy, right? So we're saying UID is actually a column inside of DB, and it's an integer, and it's a primary key. Okay, so it's just setting everything up. Okay, and then we're saying the password hash is a column as well, and it's a string. Okay, now with the email, it's a little different, right? It's unique. We set that up to be unique, and also we gave it 120 characters. So after the parentheses here, we have to say unique is equal to true. All right. So we basically set up this model here to emulate exactly what we have in our database. Okay, now we're going to come down here. So this is going to initialize the connection here. So we're going to pass self into it, first name, last name, password. All right, so when that connection happens, what we're doing is we're setting up self is basically the database, right? So we're saying the column inside the database is going to be equal to firstname.title. What title does is it takes whatever they typed into the form and it capitalizes the first letter. So if I typed in Dave, but when I typed it into the form I had lowercase d, it would take that and uppercase it to capital D. Okay, and we got to set that up for all of the columns here. Now, email is going to be a little bit different. It's going to use this lower method, which will take the whole email and just make everything a lowercase. So if they typed in a capital letter somewhere inside that email, it would just make it lowercase. All right. Okay. And then what this is doing is it's running a function called setPassword, okay, which we're going to define down here. So define. So these are just functions that we're setting up, right? This initialize function is kind of the first thing that it does. It takes what they've typed in, capitalizes the first letter, okay, lowercases everything in the email, and then it takes inside this function, it's calling another function called setPassword, and it's passing to them the password that was typed in. And this is where we're going to hash and encrypt the code, the passwords here. So there's setPassword. Okay, so it's taking what they typed in and it's setting it equal to generate password hash. Okay, remember up here we imported it so we could use it, generate password hash, and we're setting it down here and we're just taking what they typed in, right, and we are generating a password hash out of that. Okay, and then we need to have the check password, so when they try to log in, it'll check to make sure that the password is correct. So it's going to return the check password hash. All right, so that should be it for this model, right? So we imported the classes and everything we need from SQL Alchemy to make that connection to the database, okay, and then we were able to make the encrypted passwords. Okay, we set up DB, it set up a new instance of SQL Alchemy that we can use. Here's this class where we basically just set up the database and exactly how it is created. Down here we do a constructor is what it's called. That just sets up all the attributes. Okay, so it initializes, right? Then we have self, which is the database. So the database or the table or whatever you want to call it has first name in it. Make it uppercase first letter, uppercase first letter for last name. Make it all lowercase. Okay, and then it runs a function called setPassword, and it gives them the password that was typed in. There's the function. It receives the table. It receives what was typed in. Okay, it grabs the password hash and then it generates the encrypted password with what was typed in. Okay, and then check password, it returns basically a true or false. So it's going to check that password hash to see if the password that was typed in matches the encrypted password, and if it does, it will return true and then let them in. If not, it'll return false. Okay, there's a lot of typing in that one. If you got it right, it'll work. If you got it wrong, you'll get all kinds of errors, and then it'll be fun to go in there and take a look to see what happened. Okay, now that we've created this, we need to let routes know that this exists. So we're going to head back to routes. Okay, and we need to import some stuff. So up here, we're going to say from models, we're going to import DB. So this is saying from models.py, import this DB that contains basically all of this, right? Everything we need for that database. So we're going to import that inside of routes. Okay, and then right under the config here, we're going to go db.init app. What this is doing is taking the database that we created inside of the models here, and it's just going to initialize it into app. If you're like, what the heck is app? App is right up here, right? It's this new Flask app that we started right up here. So all this is doing is just initializing the database, basically making that database connection. Okay, so now that we've kind of created the database connection here, it's connected, we need to create a form, right? A form that can accept, use the name, email, password, all that kind of stuff. So to do that, there's this other plugin called Flask WTF. I did Flash. Flask. Yeah, Flask WTF kind of made me laugh when I saw that. This allows you to, has a guy like scratching his head. Anyways, it allows us to do a bunch of stuff, which is kind of cool. It allows us to create forms and such, and it does everything we'll need, and it does reCAPTCHA too. That's kind of cool. I didn't know that. So anyways, we got to get that installed. All right, so we'll open that up. We're going to do pip install flask-wtf. Okay, again, mine's going to say, hey, it's already satisfied. In other words, it's already been installed. Yours will install it, obviously. Okay, so once it's installed, we're going to come back in here. I'm going to copy and paste models or routes because we need another Python file. I'm going to call it forms. And this is going to be kind of the back-end file that will control our form. So I'm going to right-click that, open with brackets, and just erase all this stuff. All right, so we're going to do from Flask WTF import form. Watch your capitalizations, your case sensitivity, and such. From WT forms, import. These are the different types of fields we're going to be using on the form. So we're going to be using a string field, we're going to be using a password field, and we're going to be using a submit field. In other words, the string field will take the first name, last name, email. The password field is going to take the password, and then the submit field is going to be the submit button. Okay. All right, we're going to set up a class called Signup form. We're going to pass form into it. Okay, form is right up here. This is all the stuff that Flask W2F can do, basically, and we're just passing all of that into this class that we're creating. All right, so in the class, we're going to have a variable called first name. We're going to set it equal to string field because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a string field, and that string field is going to ask for the first name. So that we're creating a label is what this is called. So the label of this string field is first name, and you'll see how we use those labels here in a minute. So last name, I just got lazy, guys. So last name, and then we have email, password, and submit. So last name, it's going to ask for the last name. This is going to ask for the email. Okay, and then password, this isn't going to be a string field, this is going to be a password field. Okay, and it's going to ask for password. Okay, and then we're going to have the submit button. So submit, this is going to be a submit field, and it will say sign up on it. So that's really it for that. Okay, we've set up all the different fields we're going to have. We've defined what kind they're going to be. We're pulling these from Flask WTF. Okay, the first, last, and email are all going to be string fields. The password is going to be a password field. The submit's going to be a submit field. All right, so now we need this to render and display in the browser. Okay, so we're going to go back to routes. We got to add what we just did here to routes. So we head over here to routes. And right under the database, we're going to import it. So from forms, in other words, from this forms.py file, we're going to import signup form. So it goes into forms, it grabs this class, signup form, and it imports it into routes so we can use it. Okay, now there's this thing called cross-site scripting where basically there can be scripts on a whole other host that can come into your host and manipulate things, and that's why sometimes when you have scripts that are loading from other pages, it freaks out because it thinks that it might be malicious. So there is something we're going to do down here under the db init. We're going to set up a secret key. It's going to be equal to development key. To be honest, I don't know if we're going to come back and do anything with this, but for now, we'll just throw that in there. Okay, and now I've created this form, so we got to set up a route for it, right? We have the about page, we need, I don't like it, but I'm getting lazy here, guys, so I'm going to copy and paste that. And this is going to be sign up. Okay, we're going to call this sign up as well. This is the function name. Okay, and return render template, we're going to create an HTML file called signup. Okay, and there's a few other things we need to do here under signup. So I'm going to have form equals signup form. Okay, so it's setting this variable form equal to signup form, which is the whole form basically. Okay, and then that should be it for the routes.py. All right, so now that we've set up the route, so when we type in localhost 5000/signup, it's going to load signup.html. Well, we don't have signup.html, so we need to create that. So whoop-de-doo, here we come. Python app, templates. I'm just going to copy and paste the about because it's going to be similar to that. And I'm going to call it signup, and we'll open it up. So we want to keep the extends. I'm going to keep the navigation here because I want that to be on there. But because we're going to be on the signup page, the href here isn't going to be signup. This is going to take us, this goes home, this will take us to about. All right, so that's going to go to about. And then I can come over here and I can mess with these things too, just to get all the links working. This is going to be sign up. index. This will be sign up as well. So I'm just going to all the different pages and setting up the correct links. So we got the about page, we got the sign up page. On the index page, on the about page, it's taking us to home and sign up. So we got those. And then on the sign up page, it's going to go home or about. Okay. So I'm going to keep that. Right. Let's see. What did I do? Okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm just going to set up the way I have this. So I had another image called signup.png. I gave it a class of pick3 because it did something a little different. And this is all getting pulled from main.css, right? So there's pick3 that I've already created. Let's hit enter here a couple times. So I created another div and I gave it a class of signup. Okay, and this is going to be the div that just contains the whole form. And if I come back to main, you'll see what I did to sign up. I just gave it a width of 300. This is basically the form itself. So I only gave it a width of 300 and I positioned it. That's really all I did there. And you'll see exactly what it looks like. Okay, and inside of it, I just created an H2. Get rid of that. And I just said, I can just say, sign up here. Okay, and then I created the form. So form, the method will be post. The action, so when the submit button happens, it's going to run the sign up page. Okay, so let's get right in this. So bam, inside the form, we're going to be using these double curlies. So we're going to do this hidden tag. This helps against the cross-site scripting that we talked about. Okay, to be honest, I'm not going to sit there and bullcrap you. I don't know exactly what's going on there. I know on the form it's creating a hidden tag that will somehow prevent the cross script, but I'm not a security guy, so all I know is that helps. So now we're going to start up, we're going to set up first name, and we're going to put the label there. So remember, if we go back to forms, we have this variable called first name, and we gave it a label of first name. So what that's going to do is just print out first name to the page when we say .label here. So first underscore name dot label is going to print out whatever you've defined in here. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste this a couple times. Actually, a bunch of times. Okay, so first name label, and then we want form.firstname. What this does is prints out the actual text box. So it'll be the label, and then right underneath it, well, actually right next to it, because we don't have any break tags, it's going to print out but put the text box on the page. Okay, so over here, kind of the same thing, last name label. We just want the last name, so we want the text box to be there. Okay, so this is all pulling from forms here, right? So when we set it up, so last name is equal to a string field with a label of last name. So we're saying, all right, whatever last name is, put it on the page, which is a string label or a string field. Okay. All right, then we got email here. So the email.label, and then we just have email. Okay, and then form.password.label. password. Okay, and then form.submit. Now, I want this to have a CSS class applied to it, so inside of parentheses here I do class equals whatever class I want. And I'm going to apply the class of sign. If you're like, what the heck is that? Sign was right here, right? We gave it, this is what just made the we have it here? Yeah, like here. The class of sign does this. Makes these buttons look like this. Okay, and I want my sign up button, the submit button, to look exactly the same way and function the exact same way. So I'm applying that class of sign to it. All right, so it just goes into this forms where we've created all these forms using WTF forms, right? Set up all these forms, stored them inside of variables. Then we came in here and we're calling these variables. Okay. Then we close out the div, close out the block, and we should be good to go. So now we can test it. Come back here. Let's run the routes. Not Python, Python routes.py. Uh-oh. Okay, cool. So now we have an error. At least it's telling us happy days. So, deprecation warning from Flask, okay, traceback, file routes.line3. So it doesn't like line 3 for some reason, so we can take a look. Let's double check my notes. I don't know. Let me pause it while I figure it out. All right, cool. Yeah, I figured it out. I kind of like it, man. The debugger is nice that it just kind of tells you. I forgot a colon right there. So when you set up a class, it's kind of like a function. You got to have the colon, then underneath the colon, you do all that stuff. So saved it. Let's take a look and see if that works. So Python routes.py. Awesome. Now we're getting more issues. So, okay, file. This is cool because when I first did it, I didn't get any of these issues. So forms doesn't like that. Okay. Module not found. No module named WT form. Okay, so it doesn't like that up there, it looks like. So, it's WT forms. Gotta love it, guys. Gotta love it. All right, let's see if it's happy now. Python routes.py. All right, cool. Happy days. Now, it does say some stuff like SQL Alchemy brings significant overhead. I don't know what all the crap of that means, but I don't care. It's running. Looks like some of the things that we're doing in here is deprecated. I just want to check that real quick. Okay. So it's saying importing flask.ext.sql alchemy is deprecated. Use flask SQL alchemy instead. So I don't know. I'm gonna. It's like I want to try it, but I don't want everything to explode. So let's save that and see what it does. I mean, to be honest, we'd probably be okay, but I don't really want it to croak here. Well, that went away. But you know what? I'm going to keep it how it is right now, and then if I got to change it later, I will. Anyways, okay, so looks like we're good. Let's take a look. So go home, learn more. There's my about page. I go back home, hit sign up. Oh wait, what am I doing here? Actually, I might be going a little too crazy here. Okay, so once we're there, we're gonna go /sign up. We'll see what happens. All right, now it's freaking out again. So, form is undefined. Okay. All right, I'll hop into this, and man, this is fun. When I do it on my own, everything's great, but when I do it for these videos, I get a ton of errors, so this is fun. I will see what happens. I'll be back. All right, got it, guys. I forgot over here. So I set up this variable form that is basically holding the form. Okay, well, when I render the template, I have to pass that variable into that template so it can be used, and I didn't do that. So form equals form. All right, so that makes it so when signup.html gets loaded, and right here it's starting to use form all over the place. Well, it wasn't able to do that because when I created that template, when I rendered the template of signup, I didn't give that variable to that template. So when it tried to use form, it was like, I have no idea what this variable is or what it does. So right here, when we render the template signup.html, we then say, all right, form is equal to form here. And that's just, how you can send that variable over so it can be used. So hopefully that'll work now. There we go. Okay, so there it is. Okay, the page is dead. Let me go grab that. I'm gonna go grab that. Oops, not that. Let me go grab the picture from Flask. Sign up. So we'll throw that in there. And again, you can make this sign up page look however you want. It's up to you. So now that we refresh, the picture should show up. Boom. Okay. Now this is looking kind of junky. So I'm going to come in here and throw in some just break tags. So let's see, I just want one break tag in between the labels, but in between each element, I want to have 2 break tags. All right, now that we save that. So, I mean, you'll be playing around with this. You'll get it to kind of be what you want it to look like, but now I'm good with that. So I have the first name, that's the label, and then I have the actual text box. Okay, and then we can test this. It's a password field, so it is giving us that. Okay, and then we have the sign up button, which did inherit that sign class, so it kind of looks like these as well. Okay, and then I put that all inside of the main.css, so I was able to move it around, do whatever I wanted. Yep, sign up, so position absolute. I just had it only 40 pixels from the left. Play around with it. You can style these up if you want. I just kept it like this. I didn't want to go too crazy with it. Okay, so there we go. It's put, we got the Python page, we have a little image here that I have, and then we have the form. All right, so now if I go to sign up here, it's going to say method not allowed. So this post method that I'm trying to do, it doesn't like that. I have to be able to go in there and kind of enable it and define what's going to happen here. All right, so I got to hop back into routes. Okay, and inside of routes, I'm going to do I need to just add this. So right here when I'm importing Flask, the render template, there's another command here that I can import, and it's request. Okay. Okay, so now that I've added that and I can use it, I'm going to come down here to the signup route. Okay, and we got the form, we got the, just checking my notes here, sorry guys. All right, so right here, after sign up, we have to define the methods. So the methods, and these need to be capitalized, by the way. Get and post. So when we do the routes, we are allowing these methods. We're setting up, okay, these methods that can be used are get and post. Okay, then we have sign up. Okay, now what we need to do is have an if statement that basically says, hey, if this method works, if the post method goes through, we need to have something that happens so we can tell that it worked fine. So I'm going to come down here right underneath form. I'm going to say if request, okay, request, remember, is right up here. Now that we've imported it, we can use it. So if request.method equals post, we're going to return just a string called success, or it worked, or something like that. Okay, now do an else if, it's just elif, which is interesting inside of Python. If request method is equal to get, now remember the double equal signs means you're comparing it. You're not setting something equal to something, you're comparing. And then if the request.method equals get, we're going to do that. All right, so all this is doing is saying, look, if the request method is post, that means it went through. That means that I hit sign up and then it went through, so it's going to return to the page a string called success, or it worked, whatever. But if the request method is get, in other words, it didn't go through, then we're just going to render the template again. Right, so this is how we can see if it went through or if it didn't go through. The get method is basically when the page shows up. The post is if when I hit sign up, it goes through. Okay, oh, and I do need to add that. Ugh, that would have gave me a nasty error again. Okay, so now that we've allowed these methods, hopefully something will work. We will see. So we'll just kind of refresh this. Oh, did it die? It died. Oh, man. Actually, I don't know. We'll see if it works. That might have been the thing that I found. Yep. Okay, so it's back up running. We'll load it up. We'll hit sign up. Okay, and it says it worked. Now, it's not doing anything. It's not adding anything to a database or anything. It's just showing us that, hey, it recognized that the post method happened, and so therefore it's saying it worked. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to validate the data. So we need to make sure that none of them are empty, and we need to make sure that the email that they type in is the email that it's supposed to be, and so forth. So we'll be doing that next.